Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host, and of course, I am really happy to have you here. Welcome to those of you who are tuning into Keys to the Shop for the first time. There's a lot to catch up on. No matter what, if you love the show, it would be great for you to just hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. I know that's kind of the thing that you might even skip in the audio, but actually it does a lot for the show. It creates more visibility for the show. More people can access the interviews and the conversations we have about these important topics for coffee shops. And it just helps you too, because you get updated with new episodes as they come out. It's great to be plugged in that way. Now, Keys to the Shop is not just doing a podcast. It is a podcast, and we've got pretty much, I think maybe at this point, it's getting close to 1,000 episodes. I have to check. But the thing that we also do, and that I've been doing, and it takes a lot of my time actually these days, is consulting, coaching, working with clients who own coffee shops to help them level up their operations, their profitability, just the function of the shop, the culture, the quality, and hospitality. I've been working with people for the last 8 years, and we've helped over 80 different coffee shops and businesses in that time. And if you're thinking about coaching or consulting, this is a worthwhile investment, especially if you find the right coach and consultant. And that's usually what we're doing when we're having a conversation. I would encourage you to reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com. And that way we can just set up a time to investigate, is this the right fit for you? Is this the right kind of one-on-one coaching and consulting for your coffee shop? If you're starting out for the first time, or you've been in business for 10 to 20 years, either way, there's a lot of things we can work on to help you improve and flourish and reach the next level that's right for you. It's not just, a template that I give you, a PDF download. I work with my clients to make sure that the solutions we have for their cafes is right for them. And so if this is something that sounds interesting to you, if you want to work one-on-one with a coach or consultant to help improve your coffee shop, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. You can also follow the link in the show notes. It'll take you to a calendar where you can schedule a free discovery call. And I can't wait to talk to you. So today's episode is brought to you by our friends at ArtoBrick, arto.com, and on Instagram, it's @ArtoBrick. And then you also have the Pacific Barista Series, plant-based beverages, wonderful folks there. Both companies, I'm so grateful for their support, Arto, Brick, and Pacific Food Services Barista Series, but we'll talk more about them later on in the episode. But right now, what I want to do is talk to you about our topic today, and that is job descriptions. So let's get into it. Job descriptions are just part of the woodwork of a coffee shop. And I'm always surprised when people don't have job descriptions for the staff that they have on their roster. A lot of us have built businesses that are very organic. Let's use the word organic in nature. And as a result, the business is built through an understanding of a small group of people. Now, that's legit. That's great. As you get busier, as you get bigger, and it doesn't have to be massive, but just a little bit bigger, the complexities start to increase a little bit. And you do need to increase with that business clarity and do what we call the craft of operations, which is to identify and dial in, the way you would a coffee, the work and the process, the means by which you deliver the coffee is for you as a manager, the coffee. The way a barista dials in an espresso in the morning is the way that a manager or a leader should be dialing in the experience in the cafe for the staff, for the customers. And clarity is a huge part of this. Okay, so clarity starts with, what is the job that we're doing? What is it that is expected of me at work? How many different times have you thought to yourself, I wish so-and-so would just do this, but we kind of know that we never told them that we wanted them to do it. Often it's because our job descriptions are either not there, or they're basically things that we got from some kind of a template, or God forbid you did this whole like chat GPT download my coffee shop nonsense, and you asked it to give you a job description of a barista, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, the slow atrophying of the cafe operator brain to prompt something that is not coming from your own head. I mean, I don't want to get down this path. Okay, I'm going to stop myself. But the point is that the craft of operations needs to have you at the helm, studying the needs of the business and studying the needs of the people that make the business work. You need staff. And even if you only have one barista and it's you still need a job description. You still need some kind of a clear understanding of your focal points and priorities throughout the week. So whether you're a barista, owner, manager, trainer, it doesn't matter your title. There needs to be a way of understanding your primary and secondary, third in line responsibilities in this world. And the reason why I think is because we often lose our way. We need some structure and some systems to help us when we're in the valley. Now, sometimes we're at our top of our game. We don't need the checklist. We don't need the system, the structure. It's internalized. It's intuitive. Other times we're tired. You got a newborn at home, you didn't get any sleep, and you just have to go through the motions on the paper. Some days are like that. Some days you just have to use all of your will to do the basics. And if you have set up the basics well and the clarity is there, and you didn't just outsource it to some kind of a outside mind, but you are the one through observation of your business and your people and your customers, etc., then it will work. But when we get to the place on a job description or some system where it was, never really intended for our specific situation, it fails us. And so we end up in this hamster wheel of constantly finding new sources of more appropriate things. But it's like trying to draw a picture with your eyes closed. There's a warp there, and you need to have your eyes open the whole time when you create these things. So first of all, let it be said, if you don't have a job description for the roles that people play in the cafe, you should. And you should start simple and get specific as you go. Don't launch a job description that says, I'm going to get ahead of myself here. So I'm going to give you the bad and the good. So how to, and maybe some mistakes we make with job descriptions. So it's going to be a pretty practical episode in that way. But suffice it to say, for now, you should have a way of describing the work that you do, because otherwise you're going to show up at work and the work is going to run you. Your cafe is going to run you. The fires are just going to keep getting more massive and more frequent and in more far-flung places. You're just going to keep on being steamrolled and buried by all of this busy work. And you're not going to find any kind of objective way of viewing what is being done every day. And so that's why it's important to clarify through these processes of making job descriptions. It's also important because when you're hiring, you need to know what the role requires of the person you're hiring. If you have downloaded your job description from some crowdsourced, digital or otherwise place, that might work for a time, but it didn't help you make the right and best decision because you haven't really thought through all the details of what that role is before you post it on Indeed. There might be things related to the types of values that you want to have this person embody in the business. There might be things related to the work itself and then the necessity of either multitasking or being a team player. And these are very general things, but the role requires them going between different kinds of areas of the business and so forth. And if you don't have these things in your head that I'm hiring a barista who every day will have to do these things, these specific tasks, then we're going to fall into what is, I think, the first mistake of job descriptions, which is to be too general in order to get the job done of writing a job description. When we're in the midst of something that's necessary but difficult, we either go to the easiest thing, which is to say, well, I'll ask ChatGPT to do it. You shouldn't do that. Or we do it, but we do it in such a way that it's so general, but it sounds good, but it's not very useful for directing the work, directing the person who is being hired in that job description, who uses, by the way, that job description as a way to know whether or not they are doing a good job. Now, you need to know how to judge somebody's work. I need to know how to judge my own work. How do I know that I'm being successful in how to adjust? We all need this, a confirmation and a verification system. Am I doing what my job description says? If you're the boss, you say, are they doing what the job description says? And if what the job description says is very general, you couldn't really hold them accountable for super general things. How can you objectively judge whether or not the staff are inspired? Because you could say, hey, I don't think you're doing this part of your job description at your review meeting or whatever. And they'll say, well, I think I am. Well, I don't think you are. Well, how do you come to that conclusion? So now we're just arguing about subjective opinions about what inspiration looks like. It's not bad to include the word inspire, but how do we know when the job's done? What does done look like? How do you, when you include these things, you got to know how you're going to verify that this work is actually being accomplished. And if you can't verify this work, if you don't have a place on your schedule or a place in your mind where there's a standard that's specific, then you probably shouldn't include it in a job description, because then, if you do, you don't have a leg to stand on later on when you are like, I don't think you are doing this. Technically you can, and it's your business. And for those of you in a right to work state and all of this, you can let people go, and this happens all the time. Now, we often will rely upon our positional authority to make up for a lack in our resourcing and the clarity and communication. So rather than adjust, we save face by asserting our positional authority to the tune of punitive measures or just making people frustrated in general. You don't want to have people needlessly frustrated and walking on eggshells and wondering if they're doing a good job constantly, because this leads to the managerial burnout issue of, I'm going to do 1,000 things and hope I get 100 of them right because my job really wasn't that specific. And even if it was specific, sometimes a manager that or your boss doesn't have the place in their schedule and in their own job description to work with you, to correct you, to coach you, to praise you, to verify and affirm. So if you're going to write a job description, it has to be specific enough that it will direct somebody's work so that they know they've accomplished it, and that there's a standard against which they can judge that work. And that work can be judged by you to be accomplished or not accomplished. And they know also themselves, so that they can have some closure. And a lot of job descriptions, what it ends up being is the work feels like you're trying to swipe or sweep, black sand off a black floor. Or, just like, it's hard to know when the work's done. So that's the first thing about job descriptions. You can't make them so general. You got to be very specific. And if you want people to do all this work, you also have to make sure that your job description is not unrealistic. Unrealistic expectations are the death sentence of most cafes. They smack of somebody didn't do the work to play this out in their head. And what we need to do instead of being unrealistic is at least try to forecast what the real situation looks like when If we're busy, what does it look like for somebody to do this work? When will they make the schedule? When I see people say, your job is to curate the culture and inspire staff, my question becomes how and when? What are the tools to do that? Are they supposed to make it up? What about increase sales in the cafe and keep a healthy, margin on costs of goods? How do they do that? Is there a binder? Do they have access to the pricing? Do they have the decision-making capability to do this stuff? Have they been equipped with the means by which to accomplish their job? And if not, then are you hoping they intuit that thing in your stead, in your place? If that's the case, again, not really totally fair, especially maybe it's fair if you're paying them a massive amount of money, like a professional amount of money. And that's not like a slightly enhanced barista hourly wage. And then we try to get as much from that person as possible, you know, and we rely on saying, well, the experience is the compensation and all this other kind of crap, In that case, if you're hiring like an operations manager or a GM, you can expect that they would probably be able to, from past experience, bring in some tools, bring in some know-how and frameworks, but that still needs to be spelled out in the agreement that they will be expected to and affirm themselves that they will fill in the gaps for you. And that's why you're hiring them to do that. Unless that's in there, you are the one who needs to provide those things: access points, tools, budgets, time, communication, understanding, coaching and training, all of these things. So think about what it means to be a manager. Like if you say you want them to do 4 or 5 different kinds of administrative tasks during the week, and they're scheduled for 35 hours on bar. Now, that 35 hours of regular scheduled time, it's being a little extreme, is going to balloon into 40, 45 because somebody calls off. Now the manager has to cover that. But then you're saying, well, how come the schedule is constantly almost not getting out? Well, because I'm always busy on this shift, and where I'm trying to get the schedule done, crouched behind the back bar on the iPad before the deadline, and it feels like I'm in the literal trenches here. Okay. And you've seen this many times where managers are given an administrative load, but for fear of getting their money's worth of this person, they are nickel and dimed when it comes to time and margin. This, by the way, is part of why I don't believe that you can run a really good coffee shop and not be a hands-on leader, at least not totally hands-off, because you need to be hands-on with your leadership. And those leaders need to be hands-on. They need to be leading from amongst people, yes, in the mix of the business, but they also need margin of time and focus because that's the way the human mind works. I forget the official term for it, but if you are switching tasks all the time, there's a bit of a lag. It takes maybe 20 minutes to shake the last task and get fully focused on the next one. And yet we expect so much of people who are in the midst of the business to just all of a sudden shut off the fact that they've got all this business happening around them and they're supposed to kind of hunker down in the mop closet and get this admin stuff done. It's unrealistic. And we talk about, oh, well, people are not engaged. They're not treating this like a real job, and you're not paying them like it's a real job. And you're certainly not, for the most part, treating them as though they are responsible right away. And that makes them basically have a self-fulfilling prophecy moment where, yes, okay, this person's given very few tools, very little time. We're going to see if they work out, but you just don't give them the opportunities to succeed from the beginning. And you're like, oh, well, I knew it. Well, that just confirms that we need to start them slow, and we need to basically treat them like a liability until they're an asset. This isn't to say that you need to blow people, away with all of this responsibility and, not have maybe a bit of an onboarding process. But it is a problem in coffee shops when it comes to the responsibilities people are given is a mismatch with the resources they're given to fulfill those responsibilities. Again, it's going to be time, it's going to be communication, presence, the ability to know whether or not they've done the work, well or not, according to a particular standard or not. This is just kind of the framework that you need to be thinking of when it comes to a job description for any role in the coffee shop. Hey everybody, it's Chris, and we'll be right back to the episode, but I did want to talk to you about our sponsors today. First, we're going to talk about our friends at Arto Brick. Now, Arto Brick has been just doing amazing work with residence and commercial tile, stonework, and hard surfaces for generations. Armin and his brother Vod run it now. Their father, Arto, started this back in LA, and it has taken off. I mean, some of the most unique designs of tile and stonework you're going to find for your space. You couldn't ask for a better source of inspiration if you want to stand out and create something that is truly memorable and creates that kind of feel that differentiates your cafe from another cafe. Go with an option that is going to give you that unique and beautiful feel and space. At Arto Brick, you can find them on Instagram at Arto Brick. Reach out to Armin, have a conversation about what they can do for your coffee shop. So check them out for all of your tile, hard surfaces, and stonework needs, arto.com. Now, also, we're sponsored today by our friends at the Pacific Food Service Barista Series. So pacificfoodservice.com is where you go to see the whole lineup of plant-based performance beverages. You can go there also and get samples sent to you to try it for yourself. It stands up to the heat from steaming, has great texture for latte art, and also it keeps the balance of beverage flavor focused on the coffee. So this is a coffee professional's plant-based beverage. It's created for baristas, tested and approved by baristas all over, and preferred by baristas all over. So go check them out for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, pacificfoodservice.com. Now, back to our episode. So we covered this idea of being realistic with our expectations in these job descriptions. And one of the things we also need to think about here when it comes to job descriptions is where people stand in the organization. So you've given them sort of an overview. You're including the values of your business and fulfilling the values of the business. You're going to need to talk about compensation and any bonus structures or payment. What is it that this job compensates for their time? Hourly, salary, time off, accrued, and all of that. That needs to be part of, and usually I put that at the bottom of these job descriptions of what, you've read what the role is of what a manager does here. It relates to the place, it relates to the people, it relates to the product and the relationships and the hospitality. We refer to our values in the job descriptions. We talk about the role and the importance of the role in the job descriptions. So we have this overview, we have then very specific tasks, and then we have where you stand in the organization. Who is your boss? If you're a member of the retail team and you are answering directly to the store manager, that's really important because I need to know who is responsible for me. Who is my boss? We have too many bosses sometimes. It's really difficult. I would encourage you to choose a barista answering to a store manager, or a store manager to a regional manager or general manager, a general manager to the owner. Whatever your situation is, somebody is going to be in direct hands-on coaching and affirmation and development relationship. At some point, it needs to have there needs to be a person, not a group. It gets a little messy when there's a group because opinions shift. But in the job description, we need to have some kind of a version of an org chart, or at least what this role looks like in the organization. So who are my peers and who is my boss. That's really helpful. And again, you can have the benefits, free coffee, bag of coffee a week, how much you get paid, what about vacation, what about health benefits, and that kind of stuff. You list that out there. And of course, you want people to, when they come on and you hire them, they're going to sign this. You should sign it too. Another thing about a job description is you want to make sure, since you're signing it, it's describing the responsibility that that boss has to that position to support it. So call your shot. Just don't make the job description just about what they need to do for you. Talk about what you're committed to do in concert with them. You don't really see that very often in job descriptions, but it does show them that they can count on you because you've already counted yourself in the mix, not as just a hovering authoritative presence, but as an interested and invested presence, working with them, because that's what we want. That's what this is about, right? So you both sign this. The phraseology of things like, I agree to uphold all of the standards and, policies, both now and future iterations, while employed at this, fill in the blank coffee shop. We say future iterations because the last point we're going to make about this is that job descriptions need to be fluid in some way because your business, the role of the barista, might shift. Now, we do need to pay attention to how it shifts. Now, it might not shift into more work or more difficult work or more complex work, but it might shift into different work. And if you have a very general job description right now that has broad categories of responsibility, and you get very specific about what those look like, that's not the same as more work. That's just more specific work within those categories. So you might feel like, well, I can't ask my baristas to do more. If I change the job description, really the expectation had always been that they do this work. It's just you were not very specific about what it is you wanted them to do. And so you allowed a very general existence for your staff. And, maybe they're not cleaning enough, maybe they're not dialing in enough. And if you increase the frequency of bathroom cleanliness or increase dial in and switching out screens and screws or, cleaning between rushes and stuff, that is not the same as changing the role of the barista in particular, as opposed to something like baristas need to be responsible for managing events. Now that would be a compensation issue. Like that's a massive change. Changing the nature of the existing work in frequency and specificity is not something that in and of itself warrants an increase in payment. It doesn't. You may want to, you can, and you can choose to, but I'm giving you permission to be more specific and allow this role to change if you don't have, and a lot of people don't have, the financial margin to be able to pay more, but they want to be more specific. What might happen is people may not like that and they may leave. If you're doing what you can and not what you can get away with. If what your limits are, hopefully. And if you're limited, it shouldn't make it so that you stop being specific because that feels like you're expecting more. You're just expecting more specific work from people within the categories they already agreed to work on. And if you can pay more just as a nod to the fact that, we are, this is going to be a change and just okay, we don't technically need to, but we're going to, then great. Okay, that might help it go down a little bit easier. But in my experience, if you've gone so far without job descriptions, and you probably have people in your business now that are hiding out, low performers who really are not about the work. They just kind of feel like it's like, my friend's club coming to work. If you start getting specific with stuff, you're probably going to lose some people. But again, in a past episode, we've talked about this. It's about embracing the fallout. You need to assert the standards and systems and structures that are going to make your business better in the long run. And don't be held captive by the fallout of asserting those things. Do what you can to make it go down well. If you can't, then embrace the fallout of that, because that's part of making good on something that wasn't made good on in the beginning. So when it comes to these job descriptions, it's necessary, of course, to have them. It's also necessary to have one for yourself. Owners' job descriptions are important. How do you fit in the organization? What is your direct contribution? Our presence in business is we need to know what our highest contribution is in the moments of doing business, because the business needs owners to contribute their highest thing. Oftentimes we just default to the most remote thing, or a very unhelpful and very physical thing. So I'm going to go get the milk. I'm going to go do dishes, or I'm going to go network in the community, and I'm going to go obsess over the graph on Square in the back office. And we don't really know if that's the most helpful thing or not, but it feels like maybe the first place that we want to go. One is I'm like a visionary and I'm like overseeing. The other one is I want to be in and amongst the people. So what's the most like visceral task that I can do to show them that, but in both cases, we're reaching for some kind of an affirmation of our value to the business when we kind of haven't thought it through. What is it that your highest role is right now? If you've got a manager of a cafe and you don't need to be the daily manager, I would suggest to you that a lot of what you do now has to do with setting up that manager for success and observing the work that manager does, both the good and the affirmation of that good, and the things that you want to see get a little bit better, and work with them in a coaching relationship. So it really comes back to relationships a lot of the time, but that needs to be spelled out a little bit and these things will change over time as your business changes. So you can revamp. What does a manager do? It's a discovery process. Your role, their role might change as you expand or as the business deepens and offers more services to people. But the job descriptions need to be reflective of the life of the business. And they need to be made in a way that is intentional by the people that are part of that business. So you're not, again, don't rely upon just a template or something like that. And even if I or anybody else who is a consultant gives you a template, it should be with the caveat of this is a point at which you can start and then create a specific application for your people. It is not a fast track to avoid. These things are not things to avoid. The development of proper tools is not something, it's not something to hack and you're going to get away with something or you're going to fast track. When I hear people talk about fast tracking people to success, I think cutting them off from long-term success born from good and healthy striving in the creation of what ultimately will be a longer term tool. And by the way, also the development of resiliency. It's the same way if you save a baby from crawling, they don't develop proper motor skills, right? So you can't do too much for people in the beginning. And there is a way for you to fast track yourself and basically 3D print or download a coffee shop into existence, but it is a shaky foundation. So a little bit of a caveat here on job descriptions, but hopefully what we've talked about today will help you in your quest to write a job description for your staff and do so in a way that is a people first way with high standards, yes, realistic standards, but something that is well thought through for your business and for your team. Ultimately is going to last a lot longer. And I think you're going to be glad that you did it in the long run. So that's it for today. If you have any questions about this, if you're interested in coaching and consulting, if you just want to chat and say hello, you can email chris@keystotheshop.com, CHRIS@keystotheshop.com. And I would encourage you to go on Instagram @KeysToTheShop, follow me there. And then also on LinkedIn, it's just Chris DiFirio. Subscribe to the show and all that fun stuff. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting the show, for being here, for listening. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.